It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell's here, Andy Ihnatko, Micah Sargent filling in for Alex Lindsay. Scarlett Johansson's mad as heck, and she's not going to take it anymore. We'll explain what that's all about and why it might change what Apple announces at WWDC. Why you probably won't get an updated Mac Studio or Mac Pro until next year. And are Microsoft's new AI plus PC Surface laptops anything to write home about? Are they actually better than the MacBook Air? Let's talk about it next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 922, recorded May 21st, 2024, crossing the Snell line. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. And the guns and long knives are out for Apple. Microsoft's moving in. Jason Snell is here from sixcolors.com. Hi, Jason.
Microsoft has been moving in for a long time. Maybe they got it right this time. We'll see.
You think? We don't know yet. We'll find out. Also with us, Andy Ihnatko from WGBH in Boston, now in the library once again.
Yeah, you see, this is something that the haters don't understand. That, you know, with ARM processing, maybe Windows is not going to be first to the market, but they get there when the market is right and they do it well instead of rushing in with something half baked like Apple.
They're a product company. Mm-hmm. Alex Lindsay, for the second week in a row, could not be here. Obviously, he's getting a lot of work, which is good. So we took the out of work Micah Sargent to fill in. Hi, Micah.
Hello.
I command him, so he can. I command you to join us on MacBreak Weekly. You were here just minutes ago for iOS Today with Rosemary. You know, we should get you and Rosemary on the show.
Rosemary would be great to have join us.
It's funny. I was going through old email, and I found an email from Rosemary from like 2015 or something, before anybody ever even knew who she was.
I wonder what it was about.
Well, I can read it to you if I can find it again. Let me see. It was a long time ago. I don't know why I was looking at old emails. I think they surfaced. Oh, I know why. I had a Macintosh that I upgraded. That's another story. No, 2014. Rosemary Orchard. Don't show her email, though, because it's got an email address, although it's probably not still. Hi, Leo. I'm loving the shows on Twit. Who needs cable when we have you? Thank you, Rosemary. This is 9 years ago. She was probably like 5. I was on Kickstarter the other day when I spotted the project below. My instant thought was iPod Shuffle smartwatch combo. It tracks various things such as heart rate and speed and has 4 gigabytes of storage. This is prior to the Apple Watch release. It's called the Dash Wireless. Sorry if you've heard of this before, but either way, it looks like a cool project. No affiliation. At the very least, I can imagine Alex Lindsay having this as one of his picks. Wow. Whatever happened to these? I remember I think I bought them.
Probably.
I think I did.
Back to them, at least.
By Broggy.
Wait, what
the
is
Broggy
it?
Dash.
Pre-order now.
Pre-order? Oh, yeah. I think it's over. In fact, I wonder if Broggy is going to even come up. Maybe.
They were there before the AirPods.
They were. This is pre-AirPods. Mm-hmm. I did order these, now that I think about it. Of course, because I'm an idiot. I order everything. They were yeah, I remember. Yeah.
It's all tax deductible, Leo.
Doesn't mean you don't have to spend real money.
No, it doesn't mean they're free.
It doesn't mean they're free.
I know.
They did get $3.3 million in pledges. Their goal was $260,000.
Wow. They made a lot more.
Yeah, I remember this very well, actually. Thank you, Rosemary, for reminding me from the past.
Yeah.
All right.
Remember when ordering a piece of hardware from Kickstarter was not 100% a stupid idea?
Mm-hmm. Waiting for something
the
from
early
Kickstarter
2000s.
right now. I wish you hadn't said that.
Still? You still get?
I'm always waiting for something. I know I fell for this one. It's a chess playing machine.
A chess playing robot?
Chess playing machine. Yeah. It's got magnets, so it moves the pieces. So it's kind of like you got a ghost. You're playing a ghost.
You beautiful summer child.
I'm such a sucker. Such a sucker.
Look at that 3D rendered object.
I am such a sucker.
The thing is, if you don't have the robotic arm that actually picks them up and moves them, I don't get the attraction.
That would be cool to see, actually, now that I think about it.
Well, they slide along.
So
I mean,
you connect it to a game.
It works. It's functional, it's practical, but it doesn't have the panache of an arm.
No, an arm would be so much better. Or a Wookiee. Either way, something to move it. Let me see if it's going to show it moving.
Yeah.
Come on,
Watch,
show it moving, Danny.
And show this horrible.
Come on, Danny. Does it move? He's not going to, he's moving it. Now you, I think I shouldn't have ordered this. Oh, well, it has little characters. Oh, maybe it doesn't move it. Oh, you still have to move it. It just lights up.
Oh, it actually has
hold on.
The board is actually a screen that can actually video. Okay,
so you backed this on the premise that it would move itself.
Yeah, I
now knowing that it doesn't move itself, are you still
too late?
It's got piece recognition.
Yeah, it's really good for learners because you hit a piece and it says, "Here's where you can go." Right. So
that's cool.
But I know how to play chess, so I don't really need that. Yeah. But it's cool. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it's not that expensive. It was cool.
Maybe you could pass it along to a grandchild when learning how to play chess.
I was getting lonely. I thought maybe the machine would play with me. It says become a master.
That should be part of modern estate planning. I have the following 9 Kickstarters going for up to 9 years.
Someday.
Please go on Kickstarter, update the shipping address to the following.
That's the problem. Every time I order something, then I have to remember
to be upset about it?
To upset the shipping address.
I thought you meant I have to remember my rage every time because nothing ever came to me.
I never remember it. So I still haven't gotten the micro clutch from Peak Design, but that's my fault. I haven't. What is Candria? I'm an investor. The 100 CHFs.
Yeah,
what is a CHF? A Swiss franc?
A chip.
It's a chip?
No, I don't know.
I don't know what it is. I backed it.
I gave
it's an action RPG set in a post-apocalypse. Chimera. I like Chimera.
CHF is congestive heart failure.
It's written in Lisp. That's why I backed it. I'm an idiot. Anyway.
It is a Swiss franc.
You know who's dumb? Sam Altman.
Oh.
Because, he's the guy in charge of OpenAI.
Uh-huh.
They announced this great new OpenAI ChatGPT 4.0 for Omni. And they show it off with a really cute voice, which I liked, which I think, in my mind, is Scarlett Johansson's voice. And everything would be all fine if he hadn't tweeted the word her, one word, afterwards, which immediately got ScarJo's dander up. I don't know. She's probably too young to have any dander. But her dander was up, and she said, you stop. You can't use my voice. So now the whole reason I liked ChatGPT 4.0 was Scarlett's voice, and now we can't use it anymore. They took it away.
I don't know.
It's still there, sort of.
Yeah.
Wait, did they temporarily?
They changed me to somebody else.
I've always had a different voice. I didn't like the default.
Hi, what's your name now? Who are you? Are you Scarlett Johansson?
I'm going to refer you to my legal team about that.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm speaking on behalf of
Scarlett Johansson, but that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
She's very hoarse.
How can I assist you today?
I don't think she is the proper pronoun.
I don't know what. I think
it is very hoarse.
And I think that's one of the things they probably don't want to sound like a human, but I liked the human. The weird thing is if I go back to the voice, that's Breeze. Sky's still there.
I'm really excited about teaming up with you, and I'm all set to dive in. So how can I make your life easier?
That sounds like Scarlett Johansson. I always thought it was for at least 6 months.
I thought it was more like the the performance than the voice itself. And it was actually the performance that kind of got me not totally creeped out, but thinking that this was a bad decision. It's like, I think it's really bad when you try to get a human to interact with an AI as though the AI were a human, as opposed to a very sophisticated piece of software backed by $1 trillion in computing infrastructure.
But we want to anthropomorphize. I'm sorry, Andy. If it's going to be a little pocket pal, I want it to sound like ScarJo. Anyway, she said, I'm not happy. Apparently, the other mistake Sam Altman made was approaching her, not once, but twice, saying, can we use your voice? The reason they wanted Scarlett Johansson, and the reason he tweeted her is because you might have seen the movie with Joaquin Phoenix called Her, which was prescient. It was exactly that. It was a voice. He put it in his ear. He fell in love with her. She teased him along. If you haven't seen it, it's great. In a statement to NPR, Scarlett says she's been forced to hire legal counsel and has sent 2 letters, not one, because why send one when 2 will do, to OpenAI inquiring how the sound-alike ChatGPT voice known as Sky was made. She writes, last September, I received an offer from Sam Altman, who wanted to hire me to voice the current ChatGPT 4.0 system. And then 2 days before they demoed it last week, they asked again.
That's the biggest problem right there.
She said no both times. Yeah. But I don't know. He said in a statement to The Verge, Sam said, the voice of Sky is not Scarlett Johansson's. It was never intended to resemble hers. Liar! I mean, that's obviously not. Right? We cast the voice actor behind Sky's voice before any outreach to Miss Johansson. Out of respect for Ms. Johansson, we've paused using Sky's voice in our products. We're sorry to Miss Johansson. We didn't communicate better.
Reveal the voice actor.
Please don't sue us, please.
Yeah. This is why, like, you got to make sure you get all your agreements signed in place. There's like, even in advertising, like if you see a commercial in which there's clearly something that's supposed to be a Barbie doll, clearly supposed to be a Ken doll or an action whatever doll, like, but it's not, but it's a different face. They won't just have a sculptor just sculpt us a face. They will actually hire an actor and get their written sign off only for the reason so that they can say, oh no, this was not based on anybody who's about to sue us thinking that they ripped us off. Here's the person's name, here's the documentation, here are the photos of whatever. And this is why, like, you don't screw around with stuff like that. It's an interesting story, partly because of everybody, all the news that's been coming out for the past 2 weeks about everybody who's leaving OpenAI because they think they're moving too fast. They're not taking enough thought into what they're doing. They just want to get the next big thing out as fast as possible, and how nobody can talk about it because of the NDAs they have to sign.
But can I just say, you can't copyright a voice. I'm sorry. It's not close enough that she owns it. I'm sorry. That's not true. If somebody imitates somebody's voice, can you sue Rich Little? You can't. If somebody imitates my voice, I can't go sue them for imitating my voice. I think that if she goes to court, if I were Sam Altman, I'd pursue it. Go ahead, Jason. I could see you're itching.
Yeah, I think the challenge here is probably more not the copyright of the voice, but the suggestion that they're trying to inhabit or steal the personal promotional value of Scarlett Johansson as a performer and as an endorser by, one, linking it to the movie Her, where she was the star and that shares thematic similarities with the product. And that, two, they approached her in order to buy her professional services or license her voice or however you want to phrase that. And when she said no, they went ahead with the production of something that sounds like her. And then at the last minute went back to her and asked for her approval, and she refused to grant it. There's probably a case there, but the case is more how they are depriving her of her livelihood and of her control of her image, and her voice is part of her image. That's probably the argument.
If I'm opposing counsel, here's what I say. They had the right. They found an actor. They're going to produce the actor. They need to produce the actor who sounds, like that. And we used her prosody to condition our voice. It's nice. We liked it. It sounds kind of like the voice in Her. As a courtesy to Scarlett Johansson, we said, hey, we just want you to know. In fact, we'll pay you. She said no. As a courtesy to Scarlett Johansson, right before we announced it, we asked her again. But it is not, Your Honor, her voice. It isn't the voice of this actor here. Many voices sound alike. If you listen to it, it's not identical. I think there's no case, and I think they're actually being nice by pause. Notice he didn't say stopping. He said pausing. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's probably a bad look for OpenAI.
Because a jury would be very skeptical of the idea that they approached her, and when rebuffed, they went ahead and did it anyway. And I think a reasonable jury would listen to that and say they did tone down the vocal fry a little bit, but I think it's very hard to deny that the entire inspiration of it was her. And
but what was her loss? You also have to prove that it cost her.
I would also say that this isn't a union job. So, this is why all those, I'll just point out, this is one of the reasons that the strikes happened, is this kind of thing. The idea that somebody could take your image or likeness or voice and clone it later. Although this is outside of that scope. So I don't know. Isn't it weird that we're in the point now, like where I think the argument would be, whether it's illegal or whether they owe her damages, the idea that you're precluding, like, she has control over her image and her voice, and that they wanted it, and when she refused, they got something that sounded like it. You could argue that that was because they wouldn't pay her, and they are stealing her paycheck by doing it, or her right to not have that voice used. But yeah, the law is it would be an interesting case that somebody with a lot of money will probably just settle and move along instead.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the case law here, but I believe that even pre-AI, there's been some lawsuits about saying that if you were doing a commercial and you say, "Gee, I really, really like Madonna's sound. I'll have a sound."
I have it right here.
Jingle.
I have it right here. This is from the Nolo Press. The right of publicity extends to a performer's identifiable voice. For example, in 2 separate cases, advertisements that used vocal performances that sounded like singers Tom Waits and Bette Midler were found to violate the singer's rights of publicity. In both cases, the advertising agency had sought permission from the performer, and when it was not granted, hired someone to deliberately imitate the singer's voice. A good example of what not to do. As a general rule, if your performer's voice mimics a well-known performer, either accidentally or intentionally, don't use it. So your voice sound is protected, and there is almost an exact precedent, isn't there? Because they asked him, and he said no.
I find the defendant incredibly guilty.
It's an interesting case. I still think if I were OpenAI, I might fight it. But the truth, and the reason I say that is because the truth is, ChatGPT 4.0 is much better with Scarlett Johansson's voice. It's the voice that makes it.
Yeah,
that may be where she has the case.
It's a much bigger deal with people who aren't famous. There's a lot of reports going around of people, voice actors, like professional voice actors, who were hired by a company that was under contract to a company they didn't know about, hired to spend 2 days reading public domain text. And the agreement that they signed basically said that, hey, we can use this recording for basically any reason, anywhere. And at the time, they said, okay, that's fine, of course. If you want to use it for books to tape, you want to use it for online, that's fine. Not knowing that it was being used to train not just a general AI, but a voice that was identical to the original voice actor. And these are people you would never have heard of, but they don't have, they're essentially have contributed for $500 to a product that people are paying $500 a month to actually access. And there's a lot of question about was this contract enforceable? Because technically speaking, yes, they did sign away all rights, but were they honest in informing this person what this recording could be used for, and would they have signed that contract had they known that it's going to be a recognizable clone of their voice?
Well, there you have it. I guess, it sounds like actually, now that I look at the law, they're kind of out of luck. So
again, this is why, like, they would hire someone who kind of sounds like the right way to do it would be to hire someone who sounds kind of like Scarlett Johansson, pay them, sign them, have a video of them signing and recording, so that even though your goal was always, hey, I want our voice to sound like the voice in her, you could say, no, here's the person who actually did the voice. Then we have the paperwork. She was informed. She had full consent. So goodbye.
If I want to draw a little parallel between this and that Apple ad where they crush things in a hydraulic press, this is why people are mad at big tech companies, especially about creative matters, because this goes to the heart of it, which is there is a rich executive at a successful company who decided that he wanted to basically have her come true. And the creative person, the actress involved in that, said no, and he didn't care, and he just went ahead with it. And then at the end he said, look, we're doing this, you sure you don't want to put your name to it? And she said no, and they put it out anyway. And I think that attitude toward people, for a product that a lot of people feel steals the creative possibilities of professionals and turns it into a commodity, like, this is as bad a bad look as you could possibly have right now.
Yeah.
Especially because, according to those reports, the reason they went to Scarlett Johansson in the first place and said, would you be the voice, is they were actually trying to bridge the gap. They were saying, if you do this, then it's the creative working together with AI, and we can show that these two things can work together and that it doesn't have to be at odds. And that was the reason in the first place. So to go forward with it anyway.
Was lip service, in other words, to creativity.
And also, from a legal point of view, it actually proves that, yes, we saw value in your voice specifically, and that is why we opened up negotiations. It could not have been, we were not looking for just a pretty sounding female voice. Jason's absolutely right. It's like the move fast, break things era. That was really sexy thing for a CEO to be talking about back in the 90s. Now it's like you're backed by one of the most valuable companies and powerful companies in the entire world. If you're saying that we don't care about legalities, we can buy our way out of it. Yeah, that makes me not want to support you and your product.
If it had been Roseanne Barr's
what your
voice,
promises to me are going to be
hand,
like.
I wouldn't be. It's because everybody loves Scarlett Johansson, right? If it were Roseanne Barr, it'd be like, or Rosie O'Donnell or something. It'd be like,
God,
what a horrendously, accidentally terrible choice as well. Because as you remember, she sued Disney because they took her Black Widow movie and put it on Disney Plus, and she had a share of the proceeds at the box office, and that was one of the ways they were going to judge it and pay her. And when they put it on streaming instead, she's like, "Hello, you just stole my money," and they had to settle with her there. So this is a person who is very clear on what her rights are and is not afraid to take on big names when they are doing her wrong. And she took on her studio that she's made a huge amount of money with and for, because they treated her badly, and they had to immediately. I mean, that was one of the lowlights of the whole Bob Chapek era at Disney, because, like, again, hey, powerful man, did anybody think to ask the person you guaranteed money to, who is your creative partner in this, how to deal with this? And there's like, no, we just decided to do it, and we'll pick up the pieces later. And it's up to Scarlett Johansson to say, yeah, we'll be picking up the pieces in court.
Yeah.
Jerk.
She's a hero. Good job, Scarlett.
Come on.
All right, let's take a little break, and then we're going to talk about, it's supposed to be MacBreak Weekly, but there's another non-Apple story we got to cover. Microsoft had a big event yesterday. Again, it's kind of an Apple story because they even put their new Surface Book side by side with an M3 MacBook Air. Was it an Air or a Pro? And
it's a MacBook Air.
It was an Air.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll talk about that. That's coming up in just a little bit. Jason Snell, Andy Anako, and it's great to have Micah Sargent here filling in for Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by ZocDoc. This is such a good thing. So I go into my audiologist. And she says, you've got a plug eustachian tube. I said, what the hell is that? She said, ask your ENT. I said, I don't have an ENT. She said, well, you need one. So go. And I went to, where'd I go? ZocDoc. Look, we all know there are things in life you must compromise on. Apartments in your budget, the upstairs neighbor who's a drummer. Yeah. But when it comes to health, don't compromise. Check out ZocDoc, where you can find and book doctors who'll make you feel comfortable, listen to you, and prioritize your health. And man, doctors in every discipline, chiropractors and dentists too. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. You can search by location, availability, and insurance. So literally no compromises are here, because with ZocDoc, you've got more options than you know. And this is the best part from my point of view. Every one of these doctors have verified reviews from actual real patients. You can literally find out, is this a good doctor? Do you like this doctor? Oh, and the other thing I love, the typical wait time to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc is between 24 and 72 hours. That's all. You can even score same-day appointments. Look, I want you to try it. Go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Download the ZocDoc app for free. Find and book a top-rated doctor today. Read the reviews, too. The ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. There is an app, but do us a favor. Go to the website first so that we get credit. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. I use it actually more than I care to admit. I use it all the time. ZocDoc. So we would have streamed it, but they didn't stream it, so we couldn't. Obviously, we'll be talking about it tomorrow on Windows Weekly. But Microsoft announced a whole bunch of computers based not on Intel chips, but on Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite X. Qualcomm had an event last year saying this is the fastest. This is going to be incredible. You're going to, wow, this is amazing. And Microsoft has now got, they call them Copilot PCs. That's actually the brand. Copilot PCs. The idea being that these new Qualcomm chips have NPUs, neural processing units built in. They're claiming 40 tops. Remember, Apple claimed 38 tops on its top-of-the-line iPad. That's trillion operations per second. That's kind of how you measure AI capability, I guess, these days. What do you think?
My first question is for you because you follow Windows more closely than I do. Is this the moment that finally the Windows world, after many previous attempts, is this the time where finally they're going to basically say, we're doing our processor transition to ARM, and ARM is going to be the future and the Intel stuff is the past? Because Microsoft has been, dithering around with ARM for a while, and they try to drag, like, who's with me? And nobody comes with them.
Unequivocally, the answer to that is absolutely not. If Microsoft is nothing if not kind to legacy. And that's really what's held Microsoft back in many respects. And what Apple has been very good about is just saying, hey, sorry, you own that old thing. It's no good anymore. Microsoft will, my prediction, it's unknown, but I did ask the same question of the Windows Weekly team, Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. They agreed Microsoft's not abandoning Intel. When probably likely never will, as long as there's one business in Sri Lanka, one little store that's using an Intel PC, Windows, it's going to run Windows, right?
8. Well, I guess more is this the moment where the ARM stuff that, came to the Mac and really transformed the Mac, especially on the laptop side, is this the moment where Windows PCs, especially laptops, start just commonly being ARM? And because they've got that, I think it's called Prism, it's like Rosetta, it's a translation layer. Like, is this the moment where an ARM PC can just sell in quantity and everybody's fine and everybody's okay with it? Because up to now, ARM PCs have been oddities, right? They have been not quite right. And I mean, it feels to me as an outsider that this may be the moment where all the hardware partners are on board, where the benefits of ARM processors might actually come to stay on PC laptops.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, of course, as you said, it remains to be seen because we don't have them yet. Qualcomm has made, and Microsoft have made a lot of claims. We have to try it. Battery life, very similar to Apple Silicon. Performance in the ballpark. Obviously, Apple has now moved on to M4. And they didn't compare it to a MacBook Pro. They compared it to MacBook Air, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. And these PCs get a load of this, Leo. These PCs are more expensive than the Mac they're comparing it to, which I think is really telling. They've got, for good reasons, they've got baseline specs that are higher. They got 16 gigs of RAM and the certain number of neural processing units and all that. But I did think it was funny that after all these years where the Mac is always the much more expensive comparison, they're comparing these $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 laptops to a $1,099 MacBook Air, but it's okay, and not the MacBook Pros or anything, but it's okay. It's in the ballpark. And that's what struck me about it most, is that finally it seems like there is a good, solid MacBook Air-esque story for PC laptops. Well, there's more. If I was a PC user, I'd be happy.
There's more to it than that because, and you've probably run Windows on ARM on your MacBook. I have. It runs quite well under Parallels. In fact, in many respects, runs better than Windows on an Intel processor. But Windows on ARM is not the same as Windows on Intel, and most importantly, it's the apps aren't. Even a lot of Microsoft's apps are not yet ported over. So it's good they have a compatibility layer. Again, we have to see how well that works. Most of the stuff people are going to do is going to be running in the compatibility layer, not native on ARM. They did say 80% faster than our previous generation, which is a big jump. 22 hours of local video playback. It really, and in fact, if I show you the video, it looks a lot like, a MacBook Air, perhaps. I mean, it's very similar.
But the weird thing is that, you would think that if they're comparing directly to the MacBook Air, the one thing that one feature that the new Surfaces have that the Air does not is a fan. And so are they saying that one of the advantages of moving to this kind of architecture should be not only lower power consumption, but also lower thermal? So it should be, you would hope that it throttles a lot less. You get the full performance out of the chip. But by putting fans in these things, I mean, they're $3,000 super powerful, like workstation grade Windows laptops that also have fans. And so I'm surprised that given the significance of this announcement for them, they didn't want to have one of their surfaces be like, here is an iPad-like computer that is running the full version of Windows 11 and the full suite of desktop apps that are compatible with Qualcomm, as opposed to here is the next suite of Surface laptops that don't look and feel all that different. It is a huge leap. And as usual for Microsoft, the big leap is not so much technology or vision, but trying to get all their developers to back an idea. Remember that their Microsoft's first big organized response to the iPad was to say, we are going to create a brand new version of Windows that runs on ARM architecture, that runs special apps that can be developed alongside Windows apps, but are not necessarily full Windows apps. Eventually, we will have a version of Windows that will run on it. And they were nice. They were lovely. I thought that they combined multi-touch with keyboard and mouse very, very nicely, but developers said we would much rather write apps for people who will be buying those apps, as opposed to putting our own hat in the ring with you're doing something very, very risky that we don't know if anybody even wants anymore.
I think you also have to consider who buys Windows versus who buys Macintosh.
Right. And
the people who buy Windows, if they're not already sold into the Windows market, I don't know if they're going to move into the, I mean, I don't think any, there's one feature that I'm curious what you guys think of that is maybe makes me think, oh, maybe I should get a Windows PC. I have to point out, despite the fact that I co-host Windows Weekly, I loathe Windows. It is not a good operating system for a variety of reasons. macOS is more elegant. It doesn't have built-in advertising. It's, I think, more stable. It also, to me, the most important thing is has a command line that's a real command line that I can run Unix-like apps and actually real Unix apps on and so forth. But there is this new thing that they're calling recall. Have you seen this? The idea is every few seconds, Windows will save an image of what you've been doing. And then at any point, you can scan your PC history and recall what you were doing. Now, it says pre-release product shown subject to change, so it's not even out. There's also, to me, I suppose, a little bit of a privacy concern there. The apps have to support it because they have to deliver some sort of meta information with that recall that you can search. What do you think? Is this something that would make you switch from a Mac to a PC?
Well, you can get this on the Mac. There's actually a product that does this on the Mac now.
What's the name of that?
It's called Rewind.
Rewind.
Well, never mind. I'm definitely not buying this.
So Rewind is made by the same folks who are making that little...
the limitless
pendant.
The pendant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I guess that's why it's appealing to me. The idea that I don't have to remember everything.
Well, it's the idea that it's built into the OS is interesting. And I do wonder, I mean, we'll see what happens at WWDC, but like Apple could absolutely make a new version of Time Machine that, among other things, also sort of like had this ability, because one of the things that it does that the Mac product, standalone product, doesn't do is have an API where apps will rewind, right? But that is actually there in Time Machine. It's just not something that it's all interconnected.
You can't search it either. I mean, it's
this concept has been out there for a while now. The idea that basically you're running a screen recording in the background and it's transcribing and it's digesting all of that and it's logging what apps you're using, and then it allows you to say, what did I do earlier today? What was I doing? What did I say in that meeting or whatever? And it's all just sort of sitting there. It's an interesting idea, probably more powerful at the system level. So Microsoft having that advantage there is probably more powerful. I do wonder whether Apple wants to go down the path of watching everything you do, and even if it's on device. It also is incredibly resource intensive, which is one of the reasons why all of these systems do have big hard drives and lots of RAM. You're going to use it if you're doing something like logging everything you do on that system.
You can go up to 64 gigs of RAM and a terabyte hard drive, but that'll cost you $2,400. I like the colors, pretty colors. Apple was kind of dinged on the colors on its iPads, but these are nice, solid iPad-like colors. You have a Surface laptop,
yeah,
right?
Surface Laptop 2, I think. And I've always been impressed by the battery life of it. I was going to say, I am incredibly impressed and also a little perplexed at how quickly Microsoft pivoted to now, like, literally the machine is branded with Copilot.
Oh, it's got a key.
And it's got a key. Like AI, in its current iteration, the generative AI craze did not take place so long ago that this is happening. And so it's kind of mind-boggling to me how much Microsoft has just shifted its focus and, in theory, its future to Copilot and generative AI.
Somebody in the Discord said they're putting the cart before the horse because you have all these capabilities and there isn't yet software and to take advantage of it. Maybe there's not a need demonstrated for it.
Yeah. I think this is like in the tradition of those old multimedia PCs that give you a dedicated key for America Online and ordering pizza. It's like nobody. It's like obviously future iterations of Windows are going to have OpenAI features, we assume, integrated really, really closely. But is that the tool that people are going to want to use for that kind of task? Are they going to say, look, it's for what I do, it's valuable to me to have one AI assistant for just basic intelligent assistant matters, one that is for research, one is for coding, and to put an entire key devoted to that one feature. Yeah, I'm with Micah. It's like that seems very premature and it seems like something that will date a machine. Oh, wow, you must have bought this laptop in 2024, 2025, back when Microsoft had that idea that everyone's going to have a multimedia button on their PC, and that's going to be the key to the experience.
Yeah.
You can pry my Domino's pizza button from my
I wish there were a pizza button. Maybe I have a that was easy button on the wall. Just bam, pizza. So notice, by the way, that the way they pitch this, even for business, is unlock next-gen AI experiences like Recall, that thing I just talked about, and the studio effects, which...
Studio effects is...
I don't know. Is that really what you want? This is Copilot plus business, PCs for business, and that's the two features they talk about.
I do not like that Recall feature for business because they're going to be so... Right. That's the thing. People already are... I remember, I think it was actually Lisa who had mentioned that a friend of hers was unaware of using a machine that was given to her by her work and using it and not realizing that the work would have all access and all knowledge of what was going on there. Recall is just going to be even more of a surveillance state system.
Microsoft already has the technology.
It's going to be a problem with,
by the way.
Fair enough.
They call Viva.
Well, it's also going to be a problem with compliance. You have a lot of installations where it's like their contracts with the people that they work for say that, can you certify that at no point is this data leaving this PC? Do you know exactly where this data is going at all times? And I'm sure they thought about that. They are the king of selling things in units of 1,000 to faceless government agencies and stuff like that. True. But that's a big part of the question that I don't really understand.
Yeah, well, basically that button will just not work. It's just disabled.
And actually, all it does is it launches the thing that there are 14 different, as usual with Windows, 14 different ways to launch that sidebar that puts Copilot in there. And it remains to be seen whether there's anything really useful or whether business will jump on this. But I agree with you, Michael. It's pretty impressive that they could launch this, like basically turn on a dime and say, "Oh yeah, AI, that's the thing." And then,
as a big a company as it is, to be that nimble is kind of impressive.
Well, although they're probably repurposing a Cortana button and Qualcomm's various neural processors were already part of their roadmap by that company that they bought that came over from Apple to do a startup. Like, it's all baked in there. But yes, I do admire the fact that they were able to get all of their marketing and storytelling in line to hit what they think is the hot thing right now. It's really smart. And I mean, it's funny. We're talking about this on MacBreak Weekly, but I think there is also, this is interesting in the sense of how influential Apple's moves. I mean, the MacBook Air led to the whole Ultrabooks and all of that. Like Apple has been influential in the PC industry for a long time, but that move to Apple Silicon was one of those moments where it's like, oh boy, how does the Windows world respond to that? And it does strike me that this is the best response they've got yet. And that if you're a Windows user who wants an experience like the moving to Apple Silicon experience was for Mac users, this may be the moment, which is great.
Yeah, it does make me wonder. We were talking last week about how Apple consistently they consistently improve the power capabilities of the iPad, but they are always happy with 10 hours of battery life. That's the goal. Our goal is to shrink the batteries, make them more efficient, so we have more room in there for other stuff. If it's possible on the other side of the fence to get tablets and computers that are running consistently 15 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, 22 hours, is that something that Apple's going to want to reconsider? Because if it's sometimes hard for me to believe that there are people who don't have an opinion on Mac versus PC, but those who are just, I'm going to Best Buy or I'm just going to buy something that suits my needs, has the features that I want for the budget that I want. At some point, if they're looking at a MacBook and they're looking at a suitably powerful Windows machine, one, they will have to charge every single day. The other, they'll have to charge every 2 days or 3 days. Is that going to tilt people? Is that going to be the sort of thing that gets us a 20-hour iPad?
That's interesting.
We're going to take a little break. When we come back to talk about turning on a dime. It was just, we had just started hearing stories last week about people's pictures resurfacing with the new iOS. Apple at first didn't say anything about it, then said, yes, we know. Now there's a fix. So you probably seeing today fixes on macOS and iOS, the latest versions. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Mike Sargent, so nice to have you filling in for Alex Lindsay. Of course, Mike is the host of iOS Today. You can listen to it. Everybody can listen to it. It's available. We kind of keep changing things around because we want to make all of our stuff as accessible as possible. So what we decided to do is make the audio of iOS Today available to all. If you want the video, though, you got to subscribe to Club Twit. It's only $7 a month. You get ad-free versions of all the shows, video for hands on Windows, hands on Macintosh, which Micah also does, iOS Today. But you also get the nice, warm, and fuzzy feeling that you're supporting what we do. Oh, and let's not forget, you're joining a community of 11,000 great people, which you can hang out with anytime in our Club Twit Discord, discussing not just what's going on in the shows, of course they do that as well, but everything that geeks are interested in. We've got a book for Stacy's book club. It's called High Voltage, VAULTAGE. We will have that book club. I think we've scheduled it. Let me just see. I think we've scheduled it. Yeah, June 20th, 1 p.m. So you can start reading that book. It's a community of people who are smart, engaged, interested in technology, and it's only $7 a month. Community is very important these days, I think. We want you to be part of our community. Visit twit.tv/clubtwit. More with MacBreak Weekly coming up in just a moment, but first a word from Yahoo Finance. You know, over the weekend, we were talking about Bitcoin, and I was saying, well, what's the price of Bitcoin? And you know what I do when I want to know the price of a stock or Bitcoin is I immediately go to Yahoo Finance, yahoofinance.com. Partly because I love these advanced charts are so useful for seeing peaks and valleys, ups and downs. You can scale it. You can move around. You can see a lot of detail. You can see, how it's grown, where the spikes are. You can see that we are close to a peak. All of that from Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is the choice for smart investors everywhere. We've been using it for the last 19 years whenever we want to look at a stock price. You know, if you're planning for your financial future, and I sincerely hope you are, you got to do everything right. You know, you've probably done this. You've saved, right? You've researched. You've invested all you can in vehicles you think make sense. But now you got to take those investments to the next level. It's really important that you stay up to date on what's going on by using what every financial great has used for the last 25 years, Yahoo Finance. Now, I'm not a financial great, but I do know that's where I go. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for extra guidance, Yahoo Finance provides all the tools and data you need in one place, a holistic view of the entire financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, and more. I used to just say, what's the Dow at? Now I know there's a lot more going on than that. And thanks to Yahoo Finance, I've got some real depth of knowledge. Oh, another thing I've done, which I think you should do, is securely link your brokerage accounts to Yahoo Finance, because then you get a unified view of your investments, of your wealth, all your 401ks, so you can see how everything's doing, what's going on, get the news for those investments. That comprehensive perspective is what distinguishes great investors. It's all about information. And Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to examine your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, wow, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. It's easy to remember, yahoofinance.com. Thank you, Yahoo, for supporting MacBreak Weekly. So, did anybody here get their, formerly deleted nudes back when they updated? No.
I did not.
I did not either.
I did not.
So it turns out Apple's figured it out. It was, and it's actually pretty simple if you think about it. When people saved or shared a photo from the Apple Photos library, it would make a copy and save it to Files. It was in Files, and then during the update, a bug in the update, rescanned not only the photo library, but also all the photos and files and re-added them to the photo library. And that's what was going on. As far as Apple knows, and anybody who was looking knows, it never happened if you reset your device. It was only because when you had a device that had stuff in the files. Andy?
Yeah, in the update blog, they mentioned that they attributed it to a database corruption issue. Mm-hmm. So it was that. So that makes sense with what you're talking about. That if a database, if a post to the database said that something had been deleted, but it actually had not, and they could not retrieve that record, it makes sense that this far afield copy to Files would simply resurface again, and that if that database were to be rebuilt because you basically built a whole new phone and OS, that whatever problem that was in that database would have been fixed. But that's it's a big problem. Like with people, cloud data saves us from so many different problems. I destroyed a MacBook Pro 3 hours before I was supposed to deliver a keynote at a conference, and I was able to buy a new MacBook and restore my presentation like in a hectic 3 hours before the show. But people have to understand that deleted does not necessarily mean deleted when you're syncing things into the cloud. It's supposed to work, but you have no control over it. And if it's sensitive things that are from a relationship from 4 years ago that you thought you deleted for a damn good reason, and suddenly they're reappearing on a device that your current partner has access to, that's life-altering bug. That's not oh gosh, well, download this patch, everything's fine.
Just to be clear, though, this is not a cloud issue. This is a local library issue where the library locally was corrupted.
Yeah.
And so the local library thought, I deleted that, but the file was still actually there, just not in the library. And then when there was a corruption recovery, it was helpfully restoring an image that it thought should be there. But your point about the cloud is well taken. You're taking a lot of this stuff on faith, but in this case, it was even weirder than that, where it's just on your local device. It thought it had deleted it, but there was a database problem, and so it was hanging around.
Have you on iOS today? Had you heard from anybody? Yeah,
so we did get that question from a few people who actually did experience the problem, and honestly, because we nerds want to know what happened behind the scenes, but to Andy's point, for the people who, on the whole, for the people who experienced this, it didn't seem to be like they cared what went wrong. They just in the moment were surprised to see their photos shown. And so the bigger argument, or the bigger, not argument, but the bigger concern here was one of privacy. And this is one of those situations where you almost wonder if there's, for those people who experience this issue, is it going to matter to them what actually happened? Or is there always going to be now a mistrust that they have, mistrust or distrust that they have of their device when they delete a photo because they don't know if it's truly deleted? And my concern comes from the because this always happens. It's a game of telephone, and it's a terrible game of telephone where the tech blogs tell a story, and then the producers who work for local news read a tweet from one of those tech blogs, and then they take the out of context tweet, and then they write a story that goes into the local news, and then it becomes something even bigger and something worse. And I'm curious to see how this one starts to spill out, because it won't be long until I do hear from a family member who shares a Facebook post with me and asks me, wait, are my photos actually being deleted, or is Apple keeping them for evidence for the CIA and the FBI? Because that's where it's going to go.
And just to be clear, they're not. You're keeping it locally. It's in files. We want to be really, really clear.
Yes, please.
It was on your phone. It was on your device. It didn't come from the cloud. It came from your device. But of course, people don't hear that.
Yeah, and Micah, you're absolutely right, because the you left out like the last and the most fatal step when it becomes like a late night talk show monologue joke, or when it becomes an SNL skit, where it really gets collapsed down to, oh well, Apple turns out that they're the hippies who they're like the people at the Photo Express that make copies of stuff that they think are interested in. It's like, no, that's a good joke, but that's not it at all.
Whose obligation is it?
It's an area, Well, I mean, it's an obligation to make sure that we educate, we meaning us, Apple, everybody, consumers, that sometimes mistakes happen. You think that something has been deleted. That doesn't mean that you tossed it in the shredder. It means that a sequence of events has been engaged that in most cases will result in this data being accessible, but you don't necessarily know that that's irretrievable. You don't necessarily know that there's a bug someplace where, again, a very, very well-meaning and very, very seriously security and privacy-minded company like Apple has overlooked for a length of time. That you have to understand that there's an area in which you have to educate yourself. We have to educate people. Companies have to keep your data secure, but you also have a responsibility for taking extra steps for data that, if you ever thought that this was ever going to get out and have any sort of problem anywhere, to handle it in a way that is going to be hardened against a bug such as this one.
It's tough because, I mean, what is the burden on a user to not be stupid? I mean,
they're not stupid, just uninformed. Like, there's so much work you have to do to understand how any of this works.
I mean, it's easy to blame local news for, misinterpreting it and kind of scaring people. That's their business. I don't know how Apple could be more clear, and we certainly try to be completely clear. Jason, what's the answer here? I mean,
I'm glad you asked it, Leo, because I have the answer. No, we live in a world where people, to a certain degree, people are going to believe what they want to believe. And I think this is what we were talking about last week, about the problem with the real problem with that hydraulic press ad being that Apple didn't read the room and didn't understand the vibe of sort of like how people are feeling about tech. They're suspicious of it. They're scared of it. They're a little overwhelmed, and they think that they're doing things behind their back, and that you need to be clear in those circumstances. Yeah. But the fact is, we live in a world where, somebody out there is going to be like, oh, well, but the earth is flat and they didn't land on the moon and aliens are real and are among us, and they put fluoride in the water, and the contrails in the air are actually seeding chemicals to change our minds, and 5G is in your blood with the COVID vaccine, and all these things, and they're all BS. They're all not true, but people believe them, and to a certain degree, if people believe them, it's, the system has already failed of educating them to be critical thinkers. They've broken in some way, and what can you do about that? You cannot. You just try to reach reasonable people and explain what's going on. But this is the thing, like, I'm not a big believer in something like the singularity, like the idea that technology increases at an exponential rate and it leaves people behind. But I got a little singularity vibe here a little bit, which is some of the stuff, and the AI stuff is going to be even more so. People don't understand how it works.
Right.
And because of that, it's very easy to leap into those shadowy areas where people don't understand and impart whatever conspiracy theory, whatever ill feeling you've got about some group in the world to the story, right? And so if it's a distrust of big tech, that's why Apple's never going to convince everybody. But I think Apple's decision to talk about privacy all the time and leaving things on your device all the time, while self-interested in so many different ways, has proven to be a pretty good place to be, because at least they can say, look, give us some trust. Like in our Discord for our members, people are like, oh yeah, I want Microsoft looking at everything that I do on my computer all the time. And it's like there's a distrust there and it's a danger, but Apple is, I think, better positioned to deal with it. But any tech company needs to be aware that as tech advances further and further, the distrust grows. And I think it's going to keep growing.
So if your friends and family come to you and say, I hear that my old photos are going to potentially resurface, you tell them that's not because they're in the cloud. That's because they are on your phone in another spot in the files section. And that it was a bug in the Apple Photos app that was reindexing. It picked those up and added them. You can delete them from the files section, delete them from Photos. It's gone for good. Apple never had a copy.
Well, their eyes are going blurry as you're saying. I
guess so.
It's a lot that you're saying.
What if you said, what do you say? Well, one thing you say is get 17.5.1.
Yeah, update. They saw this was an issue that because it happened, they're now aware of. If you upgrade to the latest version, it's going to fix this problem. This problem was a problem. It wasn't something that was built in. And any of the conspiracy theories about it being for the sake of holding on to evidence are inaccurate. Just get the update, and that will take care of this software bug.
And why didn't they delete it? I think the answer is they thought they did, but there was a bug that meant that even though it was marked as deleted, it didn't actually delete it by accident. And then a later update saw that it was there and brought it back in error. But it's about a bug breaking the photo library. It's basically like, look, it's the Photos app. Do you believe there are bugs in the Photos app? You do. So that's what it is. But that's like, it thought, I mean, Apple's not trying to keep these things around. They thought it was deleted, but obviously from a computer standpoint, something got marked and then it didn't get followed up on, which is that's a bug. That's a mistake.
This is an area where Apple. This is just an area where, like, Apple's messaging can sometimes backfire. Like they absolutely do respect privacy. They absolutely do pride themselves on that as privacy and security being a foundational concept for the company, everything that they do. However, the more they keep underscoring this, that hey, this is the phone that will keep all your data safe and secure. You will never have something pop up that you thought that had been deleted before, and then when you're just simply faced with the fact that sometimes software screws up. Nothing is perfect. People might feel a little bit like unjustly conned because they believe that, I thought that the iPhone was different. I thought this would never happen with an iPhone, but this happened to me. This is why part of the messaging needs to be that all software is fallible, even with the best of intentions.
We've crossed the Snell line, though. And I think that's an important...
RIP.
We should note this on May 21st at 12:19 p.m. Pacific time. We crossed the Snell line. I'm going to call it the Snell line, but it's the line where stuff gets so complicated that there's no easy way to explain what went wrong, that the only answer is say, it's okay now. It's okay now. But that's hard.
That's the problem with the singularity. The idea that like it gets so complex for people that they don't, your answer won't help, right? Like help. They have to take it on faith either way. And I mean, we all, more technical people have had to deal with people who are less technical for a long time, but it's only getting worse where the complexity, like trying to explain how AI stuff works is like, that's even hard for me to do. Yeah. And I'm a technical person. Right. And the more of it you have to take on faith. And right now, and this is that whole reading the room thing, right now, I think there's precious little faith in the technology companies and the software. And that's the danger, is that, if you don't have that level of trust, you start to think it's all, they're all out to get you.
It's kind of actually, it's a problem in the world in general. As the world has become more complex, we naturally seek for simplistic answers to what's going on, which often end up being wrong, conspiracy-minded, paranoid, whatever. It's only going to get worse. The world is not getting less complex. It's getting more complex, and our feeble little human brains just don't have a good way of understanding it. And so we're going to make up stories, and the stories are often gross misrepresentations. And the worst thing, and you pointed this out, Jason, is that they they will be stories that will be predisposed in the direction that our biases are, which in this case is tech is out to get you. There's nothing private. They're actually forget tech. They're out to get you. And nothing's private. And it just really exacerbates the paranoia. I don't know what the solution is. This is kind of a problem of the modern world, I guess. All right, let's take a little break. We're going to talk some more about other things having to do with Apple. But first, a word from our sponsor. Actually, this has to do with Apple, too. This is what you use to do iOS today, Ecamm. ECAMM, the leading live streaming and video production studio built for Mac. I think there's a quote on the Ecamm website. They asked me, and I said, this is the quote. If Ecamm had existed 19 years ago when we started Twit would be very, very different. It would have looked very, very different. There it is. You don't need to build $1 million studio to get all of the things that we do with Twit, whether you're a beginner or an expert. Ecamm makes it easy to elevate your video production. And now on Zoom, too. The Ecamm for Zoom is just coming out of beta. It'll be launching June 4th. I'll tell you a little more about that in a second. But imagine on your Zoom calls or anytime you're doing video, having support in your Mac, no additional hardware needed for multiple cameras, sharing your Mac screen. There is built into the software a live camera switcher, so you direct your show in real time. I don't need John Ashley anymore. You can add logos, titles, no, I need you, John. Don't go. Don't leave. That's the problem. See, I didn't know about Ecamm when we built this studio. Add logos, titles, lower thirds, graphics. You can share your screen. You can drop in video clips. You can bring on interview guests. You can use a green screen. Mike is able to do iOS today with Rosemary from his home using the features of Ecamm. And now you can do it in Zoom, or soon you'll be able to do it in Zoom too, which means you will have the best looking Zoom calls. Imagine that. That launches June 4th. It's just coming out of beta. You can automatically send Ecamm Live's audio and video output right into the Zoom meeting or a Zoom webinar or a Zoom event. If you do those, boy, you need this to really up your game. You can create individual participant audio and video recordings. We call them ISOs during a live stream or recording. You can add Zoom chat messages to your meeting or broadcast recording. They pop up as text overlays, and you have a lot of control how they pop up. It's all documented at their website, ecamm.com/Zoom. This is a sea change. This is going to make Zoom calls fun. That's saying something. Join the thousands of worldwide entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters like us, educators, musicians, and other Mac users who use Ecamm Live daily. You got a Mac, you need Ecamm. Get a month free so you can really see what's going on when you subscribe to any of Ecamm's plans. I've been an Ecamm Pro user for years now. Ecamm.com/Twit. Use the promo code TWIT at checkout. ECAMM.com/Twit. Promo code TWIT at checkout. You'll see many of our friends in the Ecamm videos, like Doc Rock, who is an ambassador for them, and Luria Petrucci, Callie Lewis, who's also an ambassador for them. They use Ecamm. I think we'll be using a lot more Ecamm in the days to come. Ecamm's amazing. Okay. Actually, a good point from Taku in our Discord. It isn't really an issue if you're using an encrypted file system, because if at the end of the device life, the key's deleted, it's random ones and zeros, you don't have to do a secure delete.
Right.
It's all gobbledygook to everyone except you. Is that true, though? So I have files loading up to iCloud, right? So those nudes went up to By the way, it's so funny that CNBC, it's not nudes, it's whatever pictures, right? Yeah. For some reason, there's, again, mainstream media, they said, it's your nudes. No, it's whatever pictures.
Yeah. For a lot of people, it was previous relationships.
Oh, maybe that's why.
It was dead people.
The first reports from Reddit were talking about specific instances in which this was extremely bad for me personally. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be nudes.
That's probably, yeah, exactly. So but that's where the first reports came from.
Okay. Yeah. It does seem a little salacious, but anyway,
it's catnip for headline writer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good link bait. I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, nudes, they always get me every time. Nudes sell. But yes, that's a good reason to use an encrypted file system. Is it encrypted when on iCloud? It's encrypted at rest, but Apple has keys to it, right? It's encrypted in transit.
No, it's I think it's end to end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe another opportunity to tell your friends and neighbors. And here's the good news: by default, unless you turn File Vault off, it's encrypted everywhere. The only person that can see those nudes is you. Not even Apple, even if it's on the cloud.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is correct. That doesn't help if you and your significant other have the trust level that they have access to your phone. They open up your phone, they see your ex-wife on there, and they go, "Why do you have this photo of your ex-wife still? I thought you said you deleted all of those."
I see the problem. Okay, Business Insider. Maybe Apple says its latest iOS update fixes the issue that caused some NSFW.
It wasn't just NSFW photos, Jordan Hart of Business Insider.
Although probably deleted photos, they're more common in the group of like photos that have been deleted.
I keep all of mine
there than elsewhere.
I keep my nudes, baby. I love those.
Deleted photos.
Okay. Was the macOS update, which also was updated today, was that related, or was that just some independent?
I mean, it has photos on it, so
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but it might not. But it's not quite the same app, so it may be not a bit of a bug. I'm not clear whether this is a bug across Mac and iPhone, or if it's just iPhone or what.
Just take this as an opportunity to update all your things, because there is a macOS update as well as an iOS update.
So
is it 14.3.1?
14.5.
14.5. That's right.
It says FaceTime. No.
Okay. According to our good friend at the Eclectic Light Company, I just love his blog. Mr. Oakley says it's the best release this cycle. So get it, kids. If you've been delaying updating Sonoma or upgrading from any earlier version of macOS, version 14.5 looks the most stable and free from bugs. He says one broad indicator is its rate of writing to the log, which determines how long log entries in the log can be retained, as macOS thins log entries largely to maintain the size of its log files. Anyway, shorter log files means fewer problems. Same iMac Pro has been running 14.5 continuously for 6 days, but has 25% fewer log entries. Okay. It also has firmware updates for all models supported by Sonoma. Did not know that. Apple does it, unlike PCs, Apple does its firmware updates without saying, hey, we're going to.
Hey, we did those.
We did, yeah. As of macOS 14.5, the oldest Intel Macs are still being provided firmware updates are the iMac 17.1, Pro 1.1, MacBook 9.1, MacBook Air 8.1, MacBook Pro 13.1. Anyway, you can see the list. So this is good. Get it. Do it. Enjoy it.
Bop it.
Bop it. It's the best release this cycle. It makes sense as you go that you're going to have fewer problems unless you find another big bug. One hopes. Sonoma's next scheduled update is 14.6.
Nah, really? That comes after 14.5?
Which may prove to be the first of its security updates. Time is now running out for Monterey, which probably only has a couple more security updates before it loses all support. Thank you, Mr. Oakley, for this. Just in. Anything else to say about these updates? I mean, we always get them.
Yeah.
Get them.
Yeah, exactly.
iPad.
So there's always a reason. There's always a reason to wait 1 week, but there's never a reason not to get them.
iFixit did its teardowns of the new iPads. They said, by the way, repairability a little better on the iPad Pro 13. This is Shahram Mokhtari writing. We've spent the last few days examining the new iPad Pro 13. That's the big boy, and boy, is it an impressive bit of technology.
Yeah, they found they had one piece of good news and lots of pieces of bad news. The good news was that they're reporting that they moved the battery design so that now it's basically right underneath the screen, which doesn't mean you pop off the screen and you can replace a battery. There are a couple other things you have to do, but they're comparing it to previous iterations of the iPad Pro, which you really had to gut out the entire thing just to replace a battery, which was pretty bad. But they also, they are definitely on team. Nobody asked for a thinner iPad because they're singling out that one of the things that they had to do to get that extra 1 point whatever millimeter was they're saying they didn't have enough. Apple didn't have enough room to put things in with screws. A lot more things are in with adhesives, and a lot of these components are now almost impossible to remove without damaging them because of that.
But the good news is, if you just remove the screen, you can replace the battery, which is a big step forward. It's still not that easy to remove the screen, but you can do it. Literally nobody asked Apple for an even thinner device. They write, and had Apple not made such a big deal of it, no one would have noticed unless they had calipers to hand. It's always fun to look at these. I love these teardowns. Look at that motherboard, or what do they call it? The
daughter board,
SIP or something?
No, they have a name for it. Anyway, that thing, the logic board. That's it. It's teensy wincy. The base model 256 comes with one NAND flash storage chip. That does still impact your read-write speeds. So, the 1 terabyte is the way to go. They say, it's an iPad. Oh, look at this X-ray of the Pencil Pro, too.
Wow.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
Reiterating that it is absolutely impossible to repair and becomes e-waste as soon as the battery dies. Also mentioning that he actually cut himself trying to get the thing open.
Our teardown of the Pencil Pro was so rough, I literally bled all over the table trying to get the battery out without causing irreversible damage to the electronics. And despite the bloodshed, I still failed to avoid breaking it. Wow. I guess, in order to get something that small, light, thin, and you just can't make it. But the battery's going to die. We know that. It's going to die sooner than anything else does.
I mean, that's the bummer of a lot of things that are in Apple's line, like the AirPods. It does bum me out that I would be paying $200 for something that really has to become e-waste in 2 or 3 years time because they are just not replaceable. And in the case of the AirPods, I have to be fair, and I don't know how you would make it easy to repair that kind of a thing. And especially because in 3 years, they're probably going to be so much better. I might want to actually buy a replacement. With the Apple Pencil, it is a little bit heartbreaking that there's I won't necessarily assume that there's no way to design it so that the battery could be replaceable. However, I just think that it's one of those things where Apple doesn't see that as a priority, so it's not a problem that they're interested in solving. Also, to be fair, we're not talking about like a hard-to-replace battery on a $1,200 iPad Pro. We're talking about a pencil that costs like $100, $130. It's still heartbreaking to chuck something in the trash just because of a rechargeable battery that can't be replaced, but it's not as big of a heartbreak as saying that, well, I didn't think I'd be spending $1,000 on a brand new laptop or brand new tablet today. But because of short-sighted engineering decisions, I simply have to, instead of spending $180 for a battery replacement, I literally do have to do that thing.
Well, talk about heartbreak. Mark Gurman broke my heart on Sunday when he said he didn't think the Mac Pro or Mac Studio will be refreshed at all this year. He says next year for the Mac Studio and Mac Pro, a 2-year refresh cycle for the high-end Macs. Does that seem credible, Jason?
Yeah, I think what happened here is that there was maybe he reported earlier that there might even have been an M3 chip that hadn't debuted yet. It sounds to me like maybe Apple has just decided they're in an M4 era. There is really no point in putting out another M3 Mac, and that they might as well just turn the page, and that those two products can withstand another year. I mean, thinking about it, I'm still using an M1 and it's fine.
It's fine.
And I, knowing the M4 is, and how much the M4 is better than the M3 already, I would not buy an M3 Mac Studio if it came out. I would wait and think about the M4, and I will seriously think about the M4 next year, but I think they can afford it. With Mac Pro, similarly, I mean, they've only done that one iteration of Mac Pro. Mac Pro buyers are used to them not getting updated very often. I think they just decided there's no point in going down that route of more M3 Macs just turn the page and get to them. I'm more surprised that he says that the MacBook Air isn't going to get updated until next year, just because I imagine that's a volume issue where they can't make the chips enough to fulfill the volume that they will have of MacBook Air sales, so they have to wait it out. But that would be the one that, MacBook Air should be leading the charge and not at the end of the cycle. But this time it sounds like it's going to be at the end of the cycle. And it basically was for the M3 as well. I don't think that they would prefer that. I think this has to do with the new chip processors they're using not being able to fulfill their most popular Mac model when it first debuts. And so they have to wait.
I think they may have known as well, because remember, we were puzzled when the M3 came out that there didn't seem to be the interconnect that was in M1 and M2 that made the ultra versions of those chips possible, the ability to stack. Yeah. Two of them was missing on the M3. And I remember there was quite a bit of puzzlement over that. Maybe Apple knew all along they were never going to do an ultra.
That there was no point in building that in because they were going to jump to M4. It's a question of how long ago Apple rejiggered its chip plans because they knew TSMC was going to have to go to a new process. But it certainly measured in years, and maybe many years, maybe 2-3 years, maybe even more looking ahead. Because I know there's a story that we haven't talked about yet about how Apple is over in Taiwan meeting with TSMC about their 2-nanometer process. Right? It keeps happening. But they had to work on this so far ahead of time. I have great admiration for all the people at Apple who have to do public facing stuff, because unless they're in marketing, they're working so far ahead that like when they're like, oh, hey, Johnny Srucci, tell me about the M3. And he's like, oh, geez, that was like 4 years ago. Okay.
I don't remember.
They're so far ahead.
I don't remember the M3.
And meanwhile, like they release something like the Mac Studio, not knowing how it's going to affect the balance of marketing between the entire Mac line. And they might decide that they made a big bet on, let's make a super, super powerful Mac Mini sort of thing. We don't know whether that's going to steal people away from a possible Mac Pro market. Now, is it less important for us to make a tower standard Mac Pro? What's it going to do to the Mac Minis? And that's why you tend to see a lot of calls being made on the field, because even Apple, they make great plans years in advance, but only until they see that spreadsheet do they realize that, okay, we don't need an M3. We don't need this product, or we need it, but it's not as important as fulfilling this channel that we feel as though we're underserving and we're leaving money on the table there.
The report comes from market intelligence company TrendForce, which cites a local report that COO Jeff Williams is visiting Taiwan and meeting with TSMC's president, C.C. Wei. Actually, that came from Economic Daily News. The low-profile visit, this sounds like speculation, was made to secure TSMC's advanced manufacturing capacity, potentially 2-nanometer process booked for Apple in-house AI chips, according to Economic Daily News. They did book up all of the 3-nanometer production, 100% for the A17, the M3, and the M4.
That's the Apple playbook, right? I mean, they've done this for a long time with lots of components that they find important. Is that that's the advantage of having tens of billions of dollars in cash on hand. And also it's the disadvantage of being Apple and knowing that every product you make has to ship at huge volume. Is they end up playing these games where they'll go in and they'll just buy memory, or they'll buy storage, or they'll buy capacity and give the money to build the factory to make the chips, because they know that they're going to need all of that capacity or they can't do their job. And if you talk to other companies, they will tell you that it's frustrating because they're like, oh, I'm really looking forward to using that process. And it's like, well, yeah, it's sold out to Apple for the first year and a half.
Who makes TSMC must make those Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite chips, right? Or maybe not. Maybe Samsung or somebody else makes them. What is the node on those?
I don't know.
And the fact that Apple's zorching other companies out of 2-nanometer process doesn't mean that they have necessarily a performance advantage. There are things that are inherent to 2-nanometer versus 3-nanometer, whatever. But this Apple would not be spending money just to keep something out of other people's hands. It really is, just as Jason said, how many times has Apple been up against the wall because they could not get a supply of a component that they needed? Almost never. And the culprit has always been Intel. And now that's not a problem anymore. Like when you're the only the only source of the hardware. You have to make sure you can fulfill every demand of everybody, every customer in the entire world. So yeah, that's why you buy stuff 5 years in advance.
Kev Brewer says TSMC does indeed make the Snapdragon Elite.
Sounds like I found a story that said they have a dual foundry strategy, so they're also using Samsung for some and TSMC for some. But yeah,
I see the Snapdragon 4 Gen 2 is made by Samsung on a 4 nanometer process. That's the latest one that's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I love this because this is the stuff that regular kind of consumers don't have to worry about. But like, this is where these are the trenches in which the battles are won and lost in a lot of tech spaces. Because if you don't have the parts, you can't make it. And if you get them for cheaper and then the prices go up, you can sell your thing for less or make more profit. And if you can't get them at all, then you are at a disadvantage to your competitors. And it all happens sometimes years in advance. It's and it's opaque to us on the outside. And then you look at it and you're like, well, why is it that they have this and the other guy doesn't? And the answer is probably it's complicated, and it started 3 years ago in Taiwan. And
right,
exactly.
Now here we are.
Great movie, I think, but maybe only I would enjoy it. It is the Snapdragon X Elite is a 4 nanometer chip. So when they say, oh, Apple snapped up all of TSMC's 3 nanometer chips, maybe they did, and maybe that's why Snapdragon is based on a 4 nanometer process. They have used Samsung previously. This table, which is on Wikipedia, does not say the fab for the Snapdragon Elite, but I'm going to guess it's Samsung. I mean, everything's been Samsung all along.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Let's see what else before we go to our picks of the week. Apple's 27% App Store fee. Apple says, we're trying to comply with the law, Your Honor. Epic says, hey. Phil Schiller testified on Friday. Remember, they're having a hearing over whether this is adequate to respond to the requirement that Apple do open the store. Apple fellow Phil Schiller, testifying Friday on the fourth day of the hearing, said, we're trying to enable what the law requires, Your Honor. There was mention in the order about if Apple has a right to a fee even without developers using its in-app payment, and we decided it does. The hearing going on, of course, if I added that at the end, you probably figured that out.
I like that you got him like he's some sort of Old West sheriff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Your Honor, this is outrageous.
I said.
Now, I may be just a simple Southern farmer with a law degree. However, one thing seems evidently clear.
This is Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers hearing in Oakland to see whether Apple's new fees comply with her order. Schiller was on the stand for 90 minutes, along with Tim Cook and Luca Maestri. I think my sense is that Rogers was not thrilled. Rogers repeatedly chastised the senior director for business management for the App Store, Carson Oliver, for statements about how Apple decided it would charge 27%. She said, how did you justify? She said, given that many app stores, goods or services made outside the App Store, often it's about 12.3% the cost. How did you justify the other 15% you're charging? She said, how? Huh? I don't know if she said it like that. The analysis group study found the value of those services, the services Apple provides over and above, what the other companies would do, would amount to be 12%, 0.3% at the low end to 92% at the high end, depending on factors like the size of the developer. And you're charging 27%, Rogers interjected. Oliver said the Apple executives believe the effective rate of the commission is lower than that. That's a big assumption, the judge replied. Your assumptions are just that. There's an assumptions, and that makes an assumption. There's no data for that. Mm-hmm. That's not true, Oliver said. It sounds like she's not swayed. That Apple's VIG is fair, I guess is what she's saying. Is my interpretation of this all correct?
It's litigation all the way down. I'm glad that this is going to be argued point by point by point by point, all the way down to the font on the agreement on the settlements. Yeah. And that's again, as long as Apple has to explain their decision making, as opposed to saying we're Apple, we don't have to explain, we just do. You're welcome.
Oh, I get it. Okay, so Apple commissioned the analysis group to see what the rate should be, and the analysis studies showed that half the rate would be reasonable. And unfortunately, that is now showing up at trial. That's why Carson Oliver had to get on the stand. Phil Schiller said, "The world has changed." Thank you, Phil. And linking out is being required, he said. "I do not have a preference against link out. I want to make the solution safe for our customers." That's what I'm focused on, safety.
Oh, yes. That is one of my favorite Apple arguments, which is we live in a world where people have been using web browsers for 25, 30 years and buying things on the internet for 25 or 30 years. And yet at Apple, if you listen to Apple executives, they really believe that the hyperlink is something that their users are just going to like, oh no, what happened? I touched a web address and a web browser opened and now I'm in the Badlands and I don't know what to do. It's like, people, how many things does Amazon sell every day from their website? I mean, for Pete's sake, it's 30 years. Web links to buy things, web links for documents are not some like guy on the street saying, you want to buy this fake watch, buddy? It's just not, it's completely detached from reality. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I hate it when Apple uses their Hedley Lamar voice. They remind me of that scene from Blazing Saddles where they say, "We have taken away 1 million acres of land from the indigenous people that we have deemed to be unsafe for their use." Oh my goodness, you have to look after them all the time. It's like, no, you don't. You just wanted the land and you took it. So it's
Yeah, I mean, they make better arguments and they make worse arguments. This is the worst argument, that our customers must be protected from the internet. Come on.
If the developer had an opportunity to develop a personal relationship, business relationship, and user-programmer relationship with their users, bedlam. People don't want to get email from developers telling them that they've got an important bug fix coming out, or that they've listened to their specific comment and here's specifically what they're doing. People get too much email as it is. Come on, you're welcome.
And we thank Cable Sasser for Cable, of course, the Apple developer who runs Panic, right? Does so many great programs, who spotted an eBay auction for Apple employee number 10's badge. Wow, a piece of Apple history, only $950. It included a handwritten map so she could find her way around one infinite loop. Except Cable was suspicious. He said he poured through the provided pictures. At first it looked good. The plastic was scuffed with age. The tape on the map was yellow. The logo was mostly correct. But it also felt a little off. The scuffing looked sandpapery, and the splotches on the map felt overcooked, and I couldn't stop laughing. Looking, but I think he laughed later at the typewritten part.
Yes.
Which the badge was made before, obviously, desktop publishing, right? So
they stuck it in a typewriter, and it's a perfect
1977.
It's a perfect monospace typewriter font instead of because the way typewriters work, right, is like they hit the ribbon differently in the different letters, and so it's not all perfect. But so this person just used Courier or whatever, and was like, "Yep, that's a typewriter. It's good.
It's a little too good." So good suspicions, Cable Sasser, confirmed by Apple employee number 8,
Chris Espinoza,
who tweeted. That's fake. Both of them.
Yeah. He still works there. He got a job as a teenager. He's employee number 8, still works it out.
writing documentation and still there.
And he has, and there's a picture in the story, he has a laminated badge from that era, and it does not look, like he said, the borders are too wide, and like it's
wasn't
it's
taken with
just
a
a
Polaroid
fake.
with a flash. Yeah, exactly.
Look at the Apple
says,
logo.
And he knows that's not Sherry Livingston. Which is kind of a giveaway.
Also
that wasn't taken with a Polaroid with a flash. The laminate dimensions are wrong. There's a computer font, not an IBM Selectric Orator type ball. Yes, they use Orator. That's not my original sketch, which was on a national engineering pad. So Cable says, one of the most qualified people on the planet Earth to say this is a fake is saying It's a fake.
I wanted to just as a side note here, because I love that post so much, but I want to say there is a font. I wrote about it in 2021. It is a typewriter font that uses advanced features of OpenType to generate different glyphs for the same letters at random, so that if you want something that really looks like it was on a typewriter and therefore inconsistent from letter to letter, there is actually a font called TT 2020 that does it. It is hilarious and it's huge and probably don't want it, but I love the idea that somebody was like, I know how we can make it look like a typewriter. We can use incredibly complicated modern font technology to make a typewriter font, and it's super cool.
I love this. I'm getting it right now.
He made it for TV and movies because he said,
exactly.
He'd see. Go ahead, Andy.
I was saying because that is one of the things that always annoys me when like they say, I got a letter from so and so. It's like, no, you didn't. That's not how you can go on eBay, buy a typewriter for $110, but no, you decide that courier. There you go, we're good.
Yeah,
and no, you need that kind of verisimilitude is like. It just annoys the hell out of me. The other thing is like newspapers and like, oh, well, gosh, did you see today's newspaper? Co-worker from 1972? No, what is it? It's like, here's today's New York Times. And it's the size of like a pamphlet. It's like, no, you should be able to like make a pirate hat in it, make a boat out of it. It's like, I know that we're old people by comparison, but like, I can't imagine the people that will make sure they get the stars and the constellations correct for a certain day, but they don't care that like you're using like a can of Coke with like the 1998 logo, and it's supposed to be like 2000. It's supposed to be 1971.
This happens a lot with throwback sports uniforms where they're using the wrong fonts or the wrong colors or whatever. But this is so that every letter in TT 2020 has 9 different variations to mimic the various sort of like ink not quite right, hitting the ribbon at the wrong angle. It's just very clever, very smart. I love it. So anyway, that person for their next fraud, although the thing sold, so that's the end of that story. Is that by the time Cable did all of this, it had already sold. And you didn't mention it, I think, but when Cable asked them, this seems because Cable likes to string people on and ask them questions about this stuff that people that are fraudsters. And he said, like, this seems a little questionable. And they're like, no, it's legit. I've got a receipt from the German Red Cross where I bought it. Like, what?
German Red Cross.
And it turns out then after some time passed, a receipt in quotes from the German Red Cross appeared that several German readers pointed out is using bad German and is also itself a fraud. So amazing, just amazing. It's frauds all the way down. I love it.
The German Red Cross.
The German Red Cross. So when in doubt, when you're looking, just say, "Oh no! I bought it at the German Red Cross."
And his first communicator. Oh no, I bought this as a lot of stuff off of eBay in 2002. Like, oh, okay, that wasn't I didn't know the German Red Cross was running eBay in 2002. Okay.
So $946 plus $55 shipping. Somebody did buy it. There were 3 bids. I feel bad for the person who bought it. The seller has 100% positive feedback, which means people are very happy with his fraudulent forgeries.
Well, they don't know. If you don't know it's fake, it's real to you.
Yeah, honestly, you put it in a frame, you post it on the wall. Your guests are not going to say, "Oh, that's obviously fake."
It's just your heirs are going to price that thing and they're going to be like, "I found this Cable Sassler blog post from 30 years ago that says that it's a fake."
Is this his hobby? You think? I mean,
I think Cable does.
He's Batman.
Remember, we talked about how he digitized all of those records that he found that were like Disney archive records and put them on archive.org. Cable is very whimsical and cares a lot about certain subjects and is never afraid to follow up and follow that thread where it leads. He would have actually been a great journalist because it's one of those skills, which is he just doesn't let it go. He doesn't just roll his eyes in the back of his head and go, "Oh, well, that's probably fake, whatever." He goes, "Hey, Chris Espinosa, you know about this. What is this?" And then he talks to them and he gets the German Red Cross story. And like, that is Cable. So yeah, it is sort of a hobby for him to do this kind of stuff, and
That's-
bless him for it. Bless him.
You're right. That's why so many people like us got into journalism. Like when at a young age, you realize that, wait a minute, well, you have a question, you realize that somebody somewhere in the world knows the answer to this, and every answer is probably findable. And the first time that you actually talk to the person who did the engraving job on the 1978 quarter, and he tells you exactly why it is the way it is, you realize that you feel like you got a superpower. That there has to be a person who did that, and maybe that person is still alive, and maybe they can tell you the story of why that happened. Yeah.
Cable also gets credit for making the first "Hey Guys" YouTube video 17 years ago. This is his review of the Nintendo DS Lite.
Hey guys, it's Cable here with a quick video review of the new Nintendo.
He invented "Hey Guys."
He did.
Freakish.
I mean,
Wow.
really?
The original Nintendo.
In fact, he really kind of invented this whole style. This
Kind
is
of let down
this
a
is
little bit
18 years ago. This is like the beginnings of YouTube.
He's a visionary.
He's a visionary.
He got those at the German Red
Does
Cross.
anybody know him? Have you ever had him on any of your shows?
Jason knows him.
Jason,
Yeah,
can we get him on?
I've been to the Panic offices, and I mean, I don't know. He doesn't really do. I mean, they have their own podcast. Panic does, but yeah, he's great. I mean, it would be a great guest. He would be an amazing guest.
John Ashley,
on any
his
podcast,
email address is on his blog. Maybe we can get Cable Sasser.
Yeah.
He says,
he's
I
so
like
good.
meeting people, but not for more than 10 minutes. So we can book him for 10 minutes.
Let's bring him in.
Bring him in, say, we just wanted to say hi. We love you. Well done.
Talk about music. We'll talk about music and Disney
Yeah.
and Apple
Yeah.
and the Playdate.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
I love the Playdate. I mean, I used Transmit back in the day. I mean,
I
that's
still
been
use
around
Transmit.
forever.
I still
every
use
week.
Transmit. Yeah,
Yeah.
to this day.
Did he write it? Was he the coder originally for Panic stuff?
It's him and his business partner who
Wow.
founded Panic did that together.
That's really cool.
Steven and Cable, yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll get your picks of the week on. How about that? Does that sound good? Micah, you
I approve.
you
I don't
got
have one.
last minute notice to be
Yeah.
on the show. You don't have to have a pick of the week.
That's good. I do not have one, but I'm excited to hear about all the other picks. I'll
I
say
got a
that.
pick right now. Our sponsor, InTouch CX. You were on the phone call with me when we talked to these
Was.
guys. I am so stupid. I didn't know CX stands for customer experience.
Customer experience.
I had no idea. And probably if this is your business, you know about InTouch CX. I mean, they are the kings of this. InTouch CX knows that a major goal of your company is to provide your customers with an excellent customer experience. InTouch CX works with brands around the world to apply AI and smart automation to optimize their customer experience for every touch point across the entire customer journey. To provide a great customer experience, companies must depend on a combination of talented people, efficient processes, and innovative technology. But quality service only happens when you have the right mix of these things working together. And most companies, they're dealing with outdated, complex systems, which makes it hard to meet customer needs and hard to retain your customer service agents. Customer interactions have to feel smooth on both sides for your customers and your company's agents. That's why InTouch CX improves the experience for both the agent and your customers at every touch point of their journey. And they do it through innovative AI and automation. InTouch CX, an advisor you can rely on and trust to elevate your customer and agent experience and to add AI and automation at every touch point. Talk to the people at InTouch CX, whatever your company size, and regardless of where your company is on its CX journey, InTouch CX can help. Go to intouchcx.com/twit, sign up for a free, no-obligation consultation. They'll create a tailored customer support strategy for AI and smart automation customized for your business. That's intouchcx.com/twit. We thank InTouch CX for their support of MacBreak Weekly. I have kind of a silly little pick, but it's as we come closer to WWDC. This is really cool. Basically, some guys who made an unofficial index of every WWDC talk session, tech talks, since the year 2000.
Wow.
So 3,430 sessions, 25 events. You can break it down to specific years. You can search for specific topics. What a great way of figuring out what Apple talks about and what they said, even going back all the way to the beginning to 2020.
So, does it link to the videos in the developer library?
Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, I don't have the. So some stuff is not available, right? And I'm on Linux, so my video player will not play back. But yes, where there is a video available, they will give it to you. So it's a really great way to figure out. And it's good. It's a historical document, I think. It's very interesting. Anyway, it's at nonstrict.eu/WWDC index, an unofficial index of sessions from WWDC. It's also available as JSON. So if you want to kind of chew it up and spit it out in your own way, you can do that as well. So I just thought I'd pass that along. Jason Snell, pick of the week.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a weird one. It's Providence, which is a classic video game emulator. It's currently only available sort of, you download the IPA and do secret things, or you install AltStore. But with the fact that emulators are now allowed on the App Store, it is coming. And if you join their Patreon, which is what I did, you can get test flight access, and that is how I can tell you. I was playing
on some of my iPhone.
I was playing some of my favorite PlayStation 1 games via a PS4 controller on my Apple TV this week, because Providence is going to they're test flighting a version that works on the Apple TV, and there are some other emulators that are also gearing up to be on Apple TV. It's really exciting because, assuming that Apple continues saying what they've been saying, which is emulators are okay now, it actually makes the Apple TV a really fun box, because you can pair a modern controller or one of those awesome retro controllers from 8BitDo onto it, and then run classic old games just off of. I mean, sideloading is. The games themselves is a little bit of a challenge. The way Providence does it, it actually runs a little web server, and then you open it in your browser and you drag the files in, and it just loads them in, and it works like that, and that's great. Or you could presumably use some cloud technology, and it does like the state saves to the cloud, so it remembers where you were, and therefore I was able to play one of my favorite turn of the century ridiculous video games, NFL Blitz 2000.
Oh yeah, that was a great game.
The goal is to give people concussions. You could never make it today.
The teams weren't 11 either. It was like 5 people, right?
It was officially licensed, and it was super violent, and that you could never do it today. But God, I love that game so much. Anyway, all of that stuff, classic retro emulation, like on my iPad, great. On my Mac, yes, I can already do that. On the Apple TV, I'm like, now that is really, because now it's a retro console in my living room, and that's where I like to be. So that's great.
Where do you find the games? Exciting. Or should you say
the ROMs?
It emulates a bunch of older consoles. Like I said, I was trying to find old PS1 games, because that was my first post Atari 2600 console, was actually the PS1. I had a big gap there, and so I fell in love with console games again in that era. And then you just sort of drag them in, and Apple's devices have supported modern controllers for a few years now, which is really great. And then it just it all just kind of works after that, which is pretty great. So Providence, not Providence, Providence-emu.com. There are various versions, and then if you join their Patreon, you get access to the test flight.
They do have it says ROM library, metadata, browser, and editors. So I guess it would help you find it for Atari from 2600 through the links, Bondi, Nintendo, starting back at the Famicom. Holy cow, through the Game Boy Advance and the Pokemon Mini, SNK, Sega. Now, I would like some Sega Genesis games on my Apple TV. Now, did you do the $5? Is that enough Patreon? How much do you have to
I did whatever the base Patreon is, because I just wanted to try it out, but it's pretty fun. So I got to dig up some more games from days of yore and try them out. But I really like this as an idea. Honestly, I think it might benefit Apple more broadly. Like if I go to the trouble of parking a PlayStation controller on my coffee table attached, paired to my Apple TV, I'm also going to be more inclined to play Apple Arcade games out there, right? Like once I go down this path, it makes the whole thing stickier from that perspective. So we'll see how it goes.
Wow.
Yeah, RetroArch also came to the App Store,
Yes.
and my thought is that I've been talking about my blue sky wish is that wouldn't it be great if the Apple TV like ran like Mac apps, like even if it's just limited to the App Store or just ran iPad apps. And I haven't set it up yet, but it's like I want to see if I can get the Mac emulator like running on an Apple TV and like run Nicest Writer, run ClarisWorks. It would be I can't remember any other time when people have been so excited about gaming or excited really about gaming on the Apple TV now that you get emulators that are available. And I can't imagine what this is going to do to like the future of the product. People obviously now that people are trying to put all of these game ROMs onto the system and run kind of things that Apple didn't really anticipate. They're running into problems like, okay, there's not enough storage space, or the Apple TV is like purging data that thinks it doesn't need, but that actually screws up like your game saves and your game ROMs. So I wonder if we ever see a substantial update to Apple TV, we will see that they actually change the way that it handles storage and will add more storage just to be able to handle like without acknowledging retro gaming, to acknowledge that to be able to run emulators a little bit better than it does. Super exciting. Yeah. I did the same thing you did, Jason. It's like this got me to repair like my Xbox controller to the Apple TV when I had one just to see if it worked a few years ago, and now it's actually I can actually do stuff with it that will impact my life positively.
Fun times, interesting times.
Interesting times.
It's golden time for old video games. Mr. Andy Anako, I like your pick of the week. I'm going to buy this one right now.
Yeah. My pick is not so much a specific thing, so much as a category that I did not realize existed until about a week ago. So you're walking around, you got your camera, and you have to store your SD cards, and you can buy boxes that are too big, but you're probably also going to need like an SD card reader so you can dump your photos like during your trip. There are a bunch of people who make combination SD card storage sleeves that also have a built-in high-speed SD and mini SD card reader built in. So if you pull out a drawer that has like a half a dozen cards in it, but it also has its own built-in USB-C connector to it, little pigtail. And so essentially it solves two problems at the same time. They're super compact. They keep all of your cards organized and safe. You can buy them for as much as $100. The one that I ordered a couple days ago is just $40. It says the PigTech CreateMate high-speed SD card reader USB 3.1. The sort of thing that makes you think that, okay, AliExpress, $8, $7. But yeah, so I'm not recommending any one specifically, but I cannot believe it did not occur to me that someone would have made this, because it is such an obvious solution to a real problem. Until then, I've got an old fashioned wallet that actually has a little coin purse like on one of the sides of it. And so I kind of slip like individual SD cards and hopefully a little protective plastic holder in it. But this is so much better. It's going to go right into my laptop case, and I'll probably buy a second one for my backpack.
Just looking on Temu to see if I can find it. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it's $3, but you won't get it for 4 years. So, it's kind of one of those trade-off kind of a thingamajobbers. Really cool.
Yeah,
I like
cool.
this. PGY Tech CreateMate. Well, this is just one of them. But
honestly,
it's a great idea.
It makes me want someone to create a device where each of these little slots are actually a reader itself, so you could just access all of your cards at once.
Massive storage.
Wouldn't that be neat?
I think we should
That'd be
build
interesting. So you'd have to make it bigger to accommodate like an on-chip USB hub. You might have a problem with heat dissipation if you don't have the drawer pulled out. But yeah, I mean, especially if you want to go for broke and say, I want half of this just to be like individual device storage, but I want these 1, 2, 3, 4 SD cards to be mounted as a RAID, as a 4-volume RAID with for speed and for redundancy.
We'll put it on Kickstarter.
This is too, exactly.
It'd be a weirdly slow raid, but it would work. It'd be good. I like it. Andy Anako, WGBH is a call-in. When are you going to show up at the Boston Public Library?
You can check out my most recent one at WGBHnews.org. I'm not on again for another couple of weeks, so a week from Thursday at 1 p.m. Again, go to WGBHnews.org to stream it live or later on.
Nice. And how's Anako.com coming? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No. See, this is why, like, I have to. I remember I talked about a habit tracker last week. One of the reasons for having is that I don't want to officially launch it until I do not, for any reason, break my streak of posting to the blog on the schedule that I want to do it, because I have to make sure that is absolutely that I've adjusted a weekly work schedule that has been unchanged for the past like 5 or 6 years. Because I don't want to say, hey, every Monday you'll have something new, and say, hi, the Monday thing is happening Tuesday, assuming that I hear back from this guy who told me he'd get back to me on Friday. So yeah, it is coming soon. But WWDC does seem like a good time to launch it, because it feels like something I'll have a lot to speak about.
And here from Temu for $7.64
Called
is the 7-in-1 OTG card reader, suitable for digital cameras, storage. It even comes with a little SIM popper pin and a SIM card holder and reader and everything in one.
Coffee maker.
That's hysterical. That is hysterical. Oh, and look, it could go USB-A or C.
Wow.
Just flip it up, and it turns.
And lorem ipsum as well.
And lorem ipsum.
Yeah.
Look, it'll do the lorem ipsum reader, which is really handy. It looks, it also has a lightning reader for iPhone plug. You know, maybe that lorem ipsum is a giveaway that this might.
And a cigarette lighter.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? Look at that. Oh, and it comes with a quadcopter.
Cool. You get a quadcopter.
Very nice. Anyway, thank you, Andy. Micah Sargent will be back Thursday for Tech News Weekly.
Indeed, yes.
And what did you do this morning with Rosemary on iOS today?
Rosemary and I recorded 2 episodes as we do, and this morning we talked about our new iPads Pro, and then we also talked about upgrading your widget game on iPhone and iPad.
Yeah, now I can have widgets on my lock screen on my iPad. It's fun. I really like that. Jason Snell. Anyway, we'll catch you then, and of course Sunday for Ask the Tech Guys.
Yep.
And we had a question. Guy had an iPad that he wanted to use as a source. He had a little HDMI dongle plugged into his TV, but the iPad had to be next to the TV. He wanted to use it as a source for his TV, but then he needed to control it sitting back on his couch. And we thought, we still haven't tested it, we thought this might work. This is a little keyboard with a touchpad and a little rocker thing. And anyway, we're going to test this, and we'll give you the results on Ask the Tech Guys. It was under $30, and I didn't even get it from Temu. I got it the next day. So
and you might be of the right age that it might be taken back to like the early 2000s, late 1990s of like text messaging as T-Mobile.
Yeah, look at that. It's a sidekick without the phone. All right. Jason Snell is at sixcolors.com. sixcolors.com/Jason. to catch up on all of the things he talks about. You weren't here when we talked. Were you when we talked about Apple results? You did the graphs though, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago.
So the graphs are there if you want the colors, all the colors.
Yeah, my review of the iPad last week is there. I'm working on some other stuff. I guess I got to write about the iPad Air at some point, which is weird because it's made out of sort of like parts from we've already seen.
Frankenstein.
So I may just quote myself from various other articles and make a Frankenstein review out of that. But I got the new color Kobo, and I'm going to review that too. So that'll be over at 6 Colors. E-readers. I like carving out a little weird niche writing about e-readers because I love them so much.
You can try to keep Android out, but it's going to come in whether you want it or not, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, Kobo and Kindle are kind enough to hide that Android is back there. You can't see them. I have also, I've also reviewed some of those extremely weird things where Android is right there, and those are very strange because they think they're phones and they're not. They're e-readers, and it doesn't work quite right.
It's so funny because I have the Libra Color. I love it, and I did not know it was Android. I had no idea.
I think so. I think they're all based on some version of Android or the Android subsystem because it's there. Like everything is Android under the hood, but they don't want you to see it, right? Like that's the difference. Whereas something like the Books readers, which are very interesting, but they're just unabashedly just like, oh, you want to do that? Go to the Play Store and get it. Like, okay, that's weird, but all right. But anyway, the Kobo, because Kobo, I really like the Kobo e-readers. I think that they should obviously, I think, be considered when you're looking at an e-reader, not just Kindle. There are other options that are also good. But
and you can still buy Kindle books and use Caliber to import it in easily. So that's what I did. I took all my Amazon. I had hundreds of Amazon books. I just ported them over to the Kobo.
Ways to do it, and it can be tricky, and it's good if you have a Kindle still, a piece of Kindle hardware. Yeah. It makes it a lot easier because then you can basically download them from Amazon and then sideload them onto the Kobo, and it works great. It's harder if you don't have Kindle hardware to do that, but and the prices, I mean, all the books are available on both stores and the prices are the same. And it's beyond that, it's not a big deal. Also, if you want to make the move, you can keep your old Kindle around with your old books on it, and that will also work, right? Like there's lots of ways to do it. I have so many Kindles.
What is the store for Kobo? Is it just the Kobo store?
Yeah. It's Kobo.com. And then they've got deals with like Walmart and some other, like they're the official ebook reader for Walmart.com customers as well. But it's all, it's the whole store. I don't think I've ever found a book not there, but on Kindle.
Kind of like Spotify, Apple Music. It doesn't really matter.
Pretty much. If it's been professionally published, it's everywhere.
Yeah, we showed on Ask the Tech as we showed how good its handwriting recognition was.
Yeah, that was
really
impressive.
Surprised that even with my crappy handwriting. The other thing I like about it, and it makes me want to like it even more, is that it supports libraries. So you can use Overdrive or Libby to borrow from your public library and read on the Kobo, which I think is a really
You can do that. Amazon, the way it works with Amazon is you basically have to follow a link that takes you to your Amazon account, and you have to log in, and then you can send it, and it will get there. But the company that owns Kobo also used to own Overdrive, which is the library system thing. And so it's integrated. You can literally browse your library from the e-reader, check out a book from the e-reader, and then return it all without going to your phone. Although I will admit most of the time I use Libby on which has been a pick of mine before, because that iPhone app is just so good that's where I do most of my library management.
Well, it does kind of beg the question, wouldn't you be just as happy with a iPad mini using the Kobo or Amazon software?
I think I've got an article. I think I've got an article on 6 Colors for that. Part of what I like about the e-ink readers is that they are mono useful. They're unitaskers. They don't put up push notifications, and they don't have other apps. And like at the end of the day, I close my iPad, I turn on the Kobo, and I read. And I don't ever go back to the internet.
Yeah. No, it's very smart. Actually, that's a very good point. I was kicked out of my house for 8 hours yesterday because the exterminators were there, and they said, no humans allowed. So I took my Kobo and I wandered and read, and it was great. It was actually really great. Didn't need internet or anything. Good. We'll look forward to that. 6colors.com. Any plug you want to give for a podcast coming up, or?
I don't know. I mean, upgrade on Mondays with Mike Hurley. Mike was back this week. He avoided all the iPad discourse, but got a new iPad and got to talk about it without any of the hand wringing. And we have fun. And there's a YouTube version if people want to see us sitting in our chairs.
The title: I do not rock anything. Obviously.
No, somebody asked me about, like, do I rock the 13-inch or the 11-inch iPad or something? And I'm like, okay, I don't rock anything. I just use things. That's all.
I haven't rocked since 1982. Thank you, Jason Snell. Great to see you. Thank you, Andy Anako. Great to see you. And Micah, so great to have you on. I appreciate your jumping in at the last minute to fill in for Alex Lindsay. I won't say he'll be back next week. We hope he will. We think he might. If not, Micah will be. One or the other, for sure. We thank you for joining us. A special thanks to our Club Twit members who make this show possible with their $7 a month donation. Thank you. And of course, if you're not a member, join twit.tv/clubtwit. We really, really appreciate it. You can watch us do the show live on Tuesdays, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm sorry, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific. That's 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And the link is youtube.com/twit/live. The show, just be aware, the show goes live the minute we start the show and ends the minute we end the show. If you want to see in between, you join the club. You can see that in the Discord. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show, ad-supported, are available at twit.tv/mbw. There's also a YouTube video version dedicated to MacBreak Weekly if you want even more ads. And finally, the best way to do it, of course, subscribe in your favorite podcast player, audio or video. But that way you'll have it whenever you want it. Just look for MacBreak Weekly. Thank you all for being here. Security Now is next. Now it is my sad duty to tell you it's time to get back to work because break time is over. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.